offices and the Freemasons. But first of all, my first question to you is, why do you think that you are a chosen one?
Well, first of all, Lucas, it's very lovely to be invited to speak to you and speak to the audience. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.
To answer the question, I've never actually looked on myself as a chosen one. Some people over the last few years have come to me and said that they would like to experience what I have experienced, and I've said to them, you really wouldn't, because it's not what the glossy magazines say, it's not what people write on the internet. When you have had real experience, there are ups and downs. Filing Dales. It's in North Yorkshire.
All right.
It's the only three-phased array radar in the world. The Americans have a two-phased array, but this is the only three. It looks completely around the Earth. It sees right round the Earth and out into space.
Oh.
3 hours were up, and the guy ran into the control room. We'd been in the control room, and he said, well, we've got to go soon. And to the right-hand side, there was about 10 meters of glass wall, and behind it, two men sitting. And I asked the guy leading it, I said, who are they? And he said, they're the Americans. And what he told me is that when an unidentified flying object is detected on the radar, all of the British crew have to stand up, walk out. The Americans then unlock this glass door, come in, and they take control of the facility. And when they've dealt with what they need to deal with, they go back into their room, lock the glass up, and the Brits are allowed to come back in again. So although it is a British facility, it is totally run by the Americans.
So why do you think the British is not allowed to take care of, well, of anything that they see on their screens?
Because the Americans won the Second World War, and from that moment onwards, the Americans gained most of the German scientists via Operation Paperclip and built up a huge technological advantage, and they forced nearly every country in the world to take orders from them. That's the reason. So on this medal, I'll be very brief. I noticed there were these lovely medals, different colours, and I said, oh, they look nice. And the guy said, yeah, he said, we've been here 50 years. So this year, 2013, he said, it's 50-year anniversary. He said, that's why you've been invited. So I said, oh, can I have one? You know, and he said, well, no, he said, not really. He said, we only present them to prime ministers or generals or presidents. It's a special commemorative. And he said, oh, the Americans have been very naughty. They've made us make them, but they haven't paid for them. We haven't paid for it. We have to find a new budget heading. He said, we're in a bit of a pickle really. He said, it's very embarrassing, because when we present one, we have to ask for a donation. He said, even if the Prime Minister comes, he said, the next day we have to phone the Prime Minister's office and say, please, will you make a small donation? Because we've been forced to do this and we don't have any money.
You wouldn't think the military was that poor, huh?
Well, it's a heading. In a budget heading, it was down, there was no heading for it. The Americans, because Americans love their badges. The Americans love patches and they love badges, and so you've got to have one. Because it's an American base, secretively, you've got to have one. But we're not going to pay for it. You've got to do it. Now, just to give you a background of that, in Great Britain, in the central London area, we have what we call a congestion charge. And any motor car that comes in at a certain time has to pay extra price for coming in and using the central London area. The American government owe millions. They're the only country that refuse to pay this charge. So it's not surprising that in this case the Americans said we're not paying for it. They have a reputation of not picking up the tab. So anyway, I said, oh, they're really lovely. And he said, well, you know, they are. But I know, I can't give you one, we have to present them. And I said, well, couldn't you present one to me? And the two guys behind me burst into laughter. And then suddenly the man said, yes, I don't see why not. Which one would you like? So I said, well, I like the black one. So he said, okay. He said, the Americans insist that I take your name. He said, this is not your property. You're not allowed to sell it. You can't give it away. When you die, it can be transferred to a member of your family, but it's never yours. It belongs to the United States government. It's number 58 of a series of 500. So he asked for a donation, so I gave him a donation, presented me with that. He said to me, I present it to you. The two men behind me then got out some money because they wanted one, and the guy just shut the box, put it away, and said, we have to go. So out of 30 people, I was the only person to be given that, and that's not a coincidence. And so I'm glad to be able to show it to you, and I hope that the audience can see that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And now let's get into some juicy stuff. So it's been said that you claim to have an alien mother and even an alien lover, and also have alien children. How does that work? Please explain all of this to us.
That's what the controlled media have said.
Okay. Please set the record straight and talk to us about how all of this works.
Sure, no problem. When I was very young, two alien creatures came to me, and I now know, of course, that their whole object was to gain my confidence. And the best way to gain a young child's confidence is to pretend to be a member of your family. So one alien said, I am your real mother. And that was the point. It stood there, and its face changed to my biological mother for a split second, and then it went back to its alien face.
So it was a shapeshifter?
No, it was not. It was going into my mind and creating a holographic image. They can manipulate a human mind. Human minds, I'm afraid, aren't very good at generally blocking out these things. So it was going into my mind and giving me a holograph or screen memory. And it would then show me a picture of my mother, my real mother, and the message I got in my head, because it's all telepathic, I didn't, you don't speak with your mouth to these things. And the message came through, which was, this is your mother. And then the face changed to the real alien, and the message was, but this is your real mother. And this went backwards and forwards until I accepted this creature in its original face, in its real face, as my mother. Now, as a small boy, this is interesting, as a 2-year-old, or a 1.5-year-old.
You remember that far back?
Yes, I have a very good memory for that. I couldn't tell you what I did yesterday in the kitchen, but I have a good memory. And I remember that, and also my family have told me as well, that I called my real mother Daddy. And the reason I called my real mother Daddy was because I had a mother, an alien mother. So why would I have two mothers? So my very first words to my mother were Daddy, because I already had a mother. And that's quite interesting. So it must have been very confusing for me until I got a bit old, maybe 5 years old, and then I could understand that there was an alien mother and a human mother. But in the very early stages, that was the case. So this being presented itself as my mother, obviously it was not. You asked other questions. Off-planet children, yes, that's true. Absolutely. Been shown them, have seen them and picked them up, and have no doubt at all. A very, very interesting experience. And I wouldn't be the first or the last to talk about a sexual relationship with an alien. It's very hard for people to be honest and truthful. But I've gone around the country talking to groups, meeting people, and the number of people who've come up to me and said, that's happened to me, but I'm too frightened to talk publicly about it. And I realised that actually it's much more common than we realise.
In what way? How can you actually have an alien lover? How does that work? Is that like a dimensional shift, or an out-of-body experience that you experience in a trance, or is it actually physical?
It can be both. You can have your energy body taken from your physical body, and you can interact on that energy level, or you can actually interact in the physical body. Some of the work I've done with some of my clients who have been affected by a reptilian lovers. They claim to be bodyguards, but in actual fact, they say they're lovers. That is on an energy level. So again, it's very common, and it's all about what they call the breeding program. It's all literally about trying to create living creatures that can contain a wide range of souls, whether they're human or reptilian or feline, doesn't matter. They're trying to find a physical form that can survive on the planet, because at the moment, most hybridized beings have a very short lifespan. A clone has a very tiny lifespan, but hybridized creatures can last maybe 10, 15 years. So they're continually looking for genetics that might allow those physical bodies to last longer.
You say that that can be a physical experience, and some of the people that are your clients actually have experienced real life sex with reptilians.
Yes, because apart from the reptilians, that is an energy point. But remember that humans have the capability to connect to 12 strands of DNA. So that means that 12 strands, 12 different groups of aliens that have a strong human connection. And humans and these group of 12 are biologically compatible. Remember that when we had the Roswell crash in 1947 and a fourth dimensional spacecraft physically crashed in New Mexico, there were physical metal remains and physical alien bodies, although those creatures existed in the fourth dimension. So we know that these beings can not only come here in an energy form, but they can manifest in a physical form. It's very easy to come down the ladder, 5, 4, 3. It's incredibly hard to go up the ladder. So these aliens can come and visit us, but it's very hard for us to go into their world.
So how did you experience this, let's say, sexual experience with, and what type of alien are we talking about?
Well, I'm not going to go into that because it becomes a sensational interview, and it's something that's incredibly, I'd say, private. It's incredibly private in the sense that real living creatures were being created. You see, most abductees or experiencers create children against their will. So, that they are used. But there are a group that do not get used. And that, I think, for me, was very, very interesting. In fact, I actually said to this mother, do these children know who I am? And her reply was, well, yes, of course they do. And what she actually said was, and it's more important because you willingly created them. In other words, because they were created with your agreement, they are happier souls. Now that's an incredibly spiritual thing to say. So I was always happy to broach the subject, to push the boundaries. I was never going to just give it that the flying saucer arrived and I was put on a trolley and I was tortured and then the aliens went away. But that happens a lot. But my story was different. And it wasn't that my story was better or worse, but I felt that I needed to be truthful and I needed to tell people, but I didn't want to go into the parts that would, make a sensational story because it would take away from the message.
Well, it's certainly very controversial and eye-opening. A lot of people will have questions about it. Can you tell me whether this entity or being was looking like a physical human woman, or did it look like an alien being?
Well, an Earth human would be very, very obvious in their perception of what was human and what wasn't. But when you've had a great deal of experience of alien creatures, you're not frightened by them. Remember that for Earth humans, a blob of jelly with 10 tentacles isn't frightening to them. But what is frightening is something that looks just like them. Earth humans are frightened by creatures that look like them. They can laugh at a robot or something that looks really crazy, but they can't laugh at something that looks like them. And there are a large number of alien beings that look similar. They're not exactly the same. They have you know, two hands and two eyes and a nose and a mouth. They look very similar.
Humanoid.
But there are differences. Yeah, there are differences. And we are all compatible because around about 2 million, from about, I beg your pardon, from about 2.5 million to about 50,000, 60,000, 200,000 years ago, different alien groups landed on this earth and artificially created humanity. So we contain the genetics of a number of alien races, and that's why we're compatible. And it was only the reptilians in the last visit that forced humanity into the slave role that we are now. Because prior to that, it was purely an experiment to see how beautiful these living creatures, i.e. man and woman, could become. It was only when the reptilians arrived, they said, oh, look at this resource. We can control these people. So before that, it was a much more open, freer society. Since then,
subject as well. But will you say that you have been in the presence physically of alien beings and entities from different dimensions?
Yes, and I said it before I was elected. And I said it before I was taken to the military camp and shown around. And I've had visits from some very interesting people. One of them was an agent for the Knights Templars. And he came to me and he said, you know, I just need to tell you that my employers, he referred to them as his employers, believe what you tell them. They have no problem. And he actually said, I've come here. This was about 4 years ago. I've just done a conference. And he said, I've come here to ask you a question, but I have also an offer for you. And the offer is not dependent on the answer. So you can refuse the answer, and we've still got the offer. As it was, I answered his question, and I'll tell you what the question was. He said, when you're on a spaceship and you are seeing the future, my employers want to know whether you see the future as individual pictures or whether it's a video that rolls out. So I answered him the question, and he said, I'm here to tell you that I can offer you armed bodyguards, armoured bullet-resistant vehicles, and he said, if the worst comes to the worst, we have an underground bunker for you in Salisbury, which is a place in Great Britain. He said, we normally charge £1 million, but in your case it's free for you and your loved ones. He said, because we have decided you're a sacred object and you need to be protected. So that's the Knights Templars. I have no problem with anything that I've said or done. And I find, this is the difficult thing for me, Lucas. I find that the elite know who I am, what I am. They either like me or hate me. But the people, the ordinary people who I'm trying to reach, I'm trying to wake up, they're struggling to believe this. But isn't it always the case that the powerful and rich know the truth and the ordinary people don't know the truth? And I thought that was just very interesting.
So that does go back to my very first question. Why do you think you were a chosen one also to have these experiences with these off-world entities? And you've seen them physically and you've seen them in your mind. Is that also how it works? They enter your mind and you can download messages from them. Is that how you get your information?
No, I'll answer the two questions. The first question I've already answered, but I will re-answer it for you. The soul in this physical body has inhabited over many thousands of years other physical bodies, and some of those physical bodies have had positions of power and authority. And so that soul that exists in this body has had many experiences, and clearly these aliens have been following that. What will happen is that either an alien will appear in physical to me, and out of every 10, so 10 times, 1 time will be physical, 9 times will be as an energy format. Because if you arrive in the physical form, it's much easier for Earth's defences to detect you and react very quickly. If you arrive in an energy form, it takes the military longer to find out who they are, where they are, etc., etc. So it's about a cat and mouse game. When they arrive, they will stand in front of you generally. They come out of a portal. We're talking about extra-dimensional entities. These are the entities that a portal opens and they just appear.
And that could be in your home, where you are right now.
All the time. I mean, I very rarely had any contact at night time. Most of the experiences were during the daytime.
And do you get any warnings before it happens?
I sometimes start to get angry for no apparent reason. I start to get frustrated or angry about 20 seconds before. I have no reason why. I just get very, very on guard or very cross or very nervous, and then it will occur.
Maybe that helps to strengthen you to the experience, or what do you think?
No, I think that we are all psychic to some extent, and I think that my psychic side is saying, whoa, something's about to happen. Something's going to happen. I think that's more to do with what it is.
So you're not afraid of these experiences anymore? You've had them for so long?
I initially do get frightened because when a portal opens maybe 2 meters in front of you and a being steps forward, it doesn't matter how calm or confident you are, there's always that initial shock, because 1 minute the room is empty and then the next minute there's something standing there. So you can't be prepared for that. So there's always